Jahmyr Gibbs was good enough with those 219 yards rushing, and he threw in another 45 receiving to put him second best yards from scrimmage game this season with 264 yards. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10's for Wednesday. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and today we are going to look at the standings in the NFL, take a look at the playoff picture. But first, we are going to look at the season leaders. Now, I didn't go through every category here. I only went through the ones where this is game stats. Now we're looking at best games so far this season. And the only ones I'm looking at, and there's what I got here, 5. These are ones that somebody in week 12 made it into the top 10. That's what we're looking at, not going over past weeks who's in the top 10 if no one made it from this week. So we'll look at that, and then we'll take a look at the standings and see how teams are doing. We've had some big changes in the standings and in the playoff picture. And it is getting down there where every game's becoming more and more important for teams that are trying to make it into the playoffs or positioning themselves in the playoffs. So we'll take a look at all that. Do that in the next 30 minutes or so. Yeah, I mean, this is the standings after 12 weeks. Now, most teams have played 12 games. Not everybody has played 12. A lot of teams have played 11, but after week 14, everybody will have played 12, or I guess at that point, 14 games, and then they'll have 3 to go. So there's 18 weeks in the season. You know, every team only plays 17 games with a bye week, but I think week 14 is the last game or the last series of games where people have a bye, where teams have a bye. And after that, everybody's playing every week. It just so happens also, for whatever reason, I don't know why they schedule it this way, but in week 13, this coming week, no one's on a bye. I don't know why that is. But let's take a look at some of these top 10s we have. And we'll start. Before I start, actually, I covered the quarterbacks yesterday. There was a couple categories. One was passing yards, where Jameis Winston in losing effort made it into the top 10, actually 10th. And then also as a quarterback, 2 players being sacked. Josh Allen made it in the top 10 with 8 times being sacked, and Geno Smith for the Raiders was sacked 10 times, which topped the list this season as the most sacks in a single game. So that's the kind of stats we're looking at. So in that one, it was actually not good for any of the players. Every one of them, Jameis Winston threw for a decent amount of yards, but still in a losing effort. And of course, you get sacked 8 or 10 times, you're probably going to lose. And both of those players, their teams did lose. All right, so now let's look at the rushing yards here. Jahmyr Gibbs had a huge game, 219 yards, which is the second best single game rushing yardage this season. The only one better, and quite a bit, Jonathan Taylor has a big lead here with 244 yards. He did that in week 10. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs with 219 yards, the only player this week to make it into the top 10, just ahead of James Cook, who had been in second with 216. 4 players have rushed for over 200 yards this season so far. All right, now in the top 10, Jonathan Taylor, like I said, is first, and he's also 10th with 165 yards. He's on the list twice, as is Rico Dowdle, who had one of those 200-yard games and a 183-yard game. They're both on the list twice, so the only players on this list twice so far this year. All right, now let's take a look at some receiving numbers here, receptions. Now, this isn't a single game here, but Jahmyr Gibbs just made the list of the top 10. Actually, he's tied for 8th with Puka Nacua and Keenan Allen. They all have 11 receptions in a single game. Jahmyr Gibbs did that in their Lions win over the Giants this past Sunday. Huge game for him. I mean, running back making the top 10 as far as most receptions in a game. He is the only running back on this list. There's one tight end as well, and then the rest, there's two tight ends, Jake Ferguson and Brock Bowers. Now on this list, Jamar Chase is on it twice. Puka Nacua is on it twice. They're the only ones on this list twice so far. But week 12, Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 receptions in a win over the Giants. Now looking at yardage, this is going to be something to look at Jackson Smith-Njigba. When we look at season stats and how close he is to possibly setting an NFL record for most yardage in a single season. But he did have 167 yards this past Sunday, the most in the NFL for that last Sunday, but good enough to put him in fifth so far this season as most yardage. He had 167 yards, actually tied him with Malik Neighbors, who sadly was injured and has been out most of the season. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, 167 yards in their win over, I think it was the Tennessee Titans, week 12. The week before, Michael Wilson had set the most yardage with 185, but that was in a loss for the Arizona Cardinals, 185 yards on 15 receptions. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba is on this list twice. 10th, it's pretty close for most of this. I mean, in 10th, he had 162 yards. That was in week 6. Then he had another 167 in week 12. Let me see. I think he's the only one currently on this list twice. I think he did bump out, if I'm not mistaken, was maybe Jamar Chase had been in 10th, and he was bumped out when from the game that Jackson Smith-Njigba had on the past Sunday. Now, in this list, you have only one tight end. It's Orlando Gatson for the Chargers, 164 yards in week 7. That was in a loss. You got a rookie on here, Emeka Egbuka for the Buccaneers, had 163 yards. Pretty good game for him. He's been impressive for the most part, I think, as far as rookie wide receivers. To me, he's one of the best so far. All right, now looking at running backs, receiving-wise in receptions. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the number one guy now with 11 receptions, which he did, and which was good enough to make him in the top 10 by any receiver, but he's number one as far as running backs go, most receptions. He topped his own number. In week 1, he had 10 receptions in a loss, and Christian McCaffrey in week 3 had 10 as well. Those were the top numbers, and now Gibbs has the number 1 spot. Really good season for him. He's got 2 of the top 3. For him, that's how many times he's been on the list. Christian McCaffrey's on this list 4 times. 4 of the top 10, Christian McCaffrey. He's been the most impressive so far as receptions go. Now, also on this list that made it in a tie for 6th, and when I say that, actually a tie for 5th, that's because there's 8 players with at least 8 receptions, 8 running backs, I should say. And Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders made it into that number with 8 receptions. So 2 players were able to make it into the top 10 this season for most receptions by a running back, Jahmyr Gibbs and Ashton Jeanty. And Ashton Jeanty had 8 receptions before he left the game injured. Hopefully it's not too bad of an injury, but they finally decided to use him as a running back, but using him as a receiver. Their offensive line is pathetic for him to try to run it through. So why not get him out there in the open a little bit and see what he can do with less people standing right in front of him waiting for him? He doesn't even get to the line of scrimmage most of the time before somebody's got a hand on him. Hopefully he's not too badly injured. Now, let's see here. This next one is, let's see here. Having a little difficulty with my files here. Hang on one second. All right. Yards from scrimmage. Now, this is yards from scrimmage. Well, Jahmyr Gibbs was good enough with those 219 yards rushing, and he threw in another 45 receiving to put him second best yards from scrimmage game this season with 264 yards. The only one better was Jonathan Taylor, who has the highest rushing total with 244. He added 42 yards receiving onto his total for 286. That's the best number so far. That was a couple weeks ago. Jahmyr Gibbs now has 2 times he's been in the top 10. He had 218 yards in week 7. Jonathan Taylor's been on this list twice, 286 yards, and then he also had 215. Now, what's changed about this list is that every player on the top 10 has at least 200 yards from scrimmage to make it into the top 10. Christian McCaffrey's in 10th with 201 yards. That's the lowest amount. So you got 10 people that have been able to get over 200 yards of total yards from scrimmage. And Jahmyr Gibbs did it this past week. Rico Dowdle's on this list twice, as is, I said, Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs. Those 3 all on this list twice. What's also interesting is, seems like a good recipe for success, but every player on this list with more than 200 yards from scrimmage, their team won their game. So you get a player that goes off like that, and you're going to win the game. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs did it, and they needed every yard he had because that game was close with the Giants, way closer than anybody thought it would be. But he just basically carried that team across the finish line for the win, him and St. Brown. But Jahmyr Gibbs, man, 11 catches for 45 yards plus another 219 rushing. He definitely dominated that game. Now, let's take a look at the standings. This is pretty interesting. All right, we'll start in the AFC. Now, in the AFC East, boy, the New England Patriots, their coach right now is probably the candidate for coach of the year. Right now, the New England Patriots on a 9-game winning streak. They are 10-2. 3-0 in the division, 10-2. The Buffalo Bills really needed a win. They did not get it. They are now 7-4. So they are 2.5 games back of the New England Patriots. So when they match them in record, when they both have played 12 games, let's say the Bills win, they'll still be 2 games back of New England. So New England really has a good hold on this division. And when we look at the playoff picture, we can see how they very well could end up winning this division. Now, Miami Dolphins, with that big win they had over Buffalo, are 4-7. They've won 2 in a row, and they're not out of the playoff picture, but they're going to need a lot of help. They basically have to win out and go 10-7 to have a chance, honestly. There's too many teams in the FC that they got to pass, so they're going to really have to go on a huge winning streak. I'm not really sure that's possible, but that's the only way they're going to have a chance to make the playoffs at all. But right now, New England Patriots 10-2, Buffalo Bills are 7-4. Now in the AFC North, this had a turn here. Pittsburgh Steelers have been in first place most of the year. They are now in second behind the Baltimore Ravens. They're both 6-5. Baltimore Ravens have been on a 5-game winning streak, which is quite amazing, honestly, with the fact that Lamar Jackson is not playing well, and they're still winning. I've heard rumors that he's got some injuries, and maybe they're fairly serious. I mean, well enough he can play, but not good and not well enough that he can play well. And but they keep winning. Their 5-game winning streak, and they are now in first place. They're 2-0 in the division, while Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-1. Now, obviously, they'll play and each other, and Pittsburgh has a chance to come back. But Pittsburgh had a pretty good hold on this division, and they've kind of let it slip away. And by doing that, Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns are not out of it. I mean, right now they are 3 games back of the Ravens and the Steelers, but there's more games to play within the division, and so they have a chance. Cleveland Browns are also 3-8, but they're 0-4 in the division, while Cincinnati Bengals are 2-1. And with Burrows coming back for the Bengals, we'll see what happens, but they're another team that basically has to win out, and the only way they're making the playoffs is if they win their division. So the chances are pretty slim for them at this point in time. AFC South. It wasn't long ago that the Colts had may have had a 3-game lead in this division. It's down to 1. Indianapolis Colts lost in a tough game. They really should have won that game. They lost. They are 8-3. Jacksonville Jaguars are 7-4. And the Houston Texans are 6-5. And then Tennessee Titans are in first place for the NFL draft for next year. They're at 1-10. Jacksonville Jaguars have won 2 in a row to get to 7-4 and only 1 game back. And the Houston Texans have won 3 in a row to get to 6-5, and they're 2 games back. And both of these teams are still ready to play the Indianapolis Colts. So there's no way to know, honestly, who's going to end up in first here. Now, the Texans and the Jaguars have played each other twice already, so they're 1-1. So with the Jaguars now with a game lead over them. Now for the Jaguars, they play the Colts twice, but they play Tennessee twice as well, and then the Jets. So they have a decent schedule, going forward. But Indianapolis Colts right now have a 1-game lead on the Jaguars and a 2-game lead on the Texans. So there's a lot of fight going on that's still left in this division. It's going to be exciting. Now in the AFC West, Denver Broncos just keep winning. They're on an 8-game winning streak. They've been impressive as well. They're 9-2. The Chargers 7-4. And then the Kansas City Chiefs are 6-5. Boy, they needed that win. They almost lost it. They would have been 5-6 and basically out of it. Even with the win, they're still 3 games back of Denver. Denver's 2-1 in the division. The Chargers are 3-0. Kansas City Chiefs are 1-2. So they don't win any tiebreakers. They're going to basically have to. I don't think they can catch Denver. It's not out of the realm of possibility, obviously, but they definitely have a chance to make the playoffs. They're not in the playoffs yet. Not really. They're going to have some teams lose or just continue to win while teams lose, yeah. But it'd be something if Kansas City Chiefs do not make the playoffs. That would be incredible after, going to the Super Bowl last year. But Denver Broncos with a 2-game lead over the Chargers and a 3-game lead over Kansas City are fairly well dominating the AFC West at this point in time. But there's still 6 games to go for all these teams. A lot can happen in 6 games. Now, moving over to the NFC East, the Eagles, wow, they let one get away from Dallas. They had that game after the first half. They were winning 21-7, and somehow they could not score a point in the second half in the game against Dallas. Dallas comes roaring back, wins 24-21. And now Dallas Cowboys are 5-5-1. They've made it back up to 500 with a 2-game winning streak. Now the Eagles dropped to 8-3, so they still have, a decent lead, a 2.5-game lead over the Cowboys, but they opened the door for the Cowboys a little bit. Now the only problem for the Cowboys is they've played the Eagles now twice, so they're done with them. They can't catch up any ground by playing them head to head. So they're going to have to continue to win their games. And they got a tough one against the Chiefs coming up. Now, for both teams, honestly, a loss is going to hurt both of those teams severely. Now, the other 2 teams, the Washington Commanders are 3-8, and the New York Giants are 2-10. Giants put up quite a battle, I should say, trying to beat Detroit and pulled out every trick play and just came up short again. That was without Dart. I mean, it just was Winston had a good game, but this team with not very much talent. But they did put up a good fight, and they still ended up losing. Both the Commanders and Giants are on 6-game losing streaks. Boy, their season's just tanked, honestly. And they're pretty much starting to look toward next year, or they may very well be. So this is a battle between the Eagles and the Cowboys, but the Eagles still really have a good hold on that division. Now, moving to the NFC North, this is a division that just keeps flip-flopping, but the Chicago Bears were able to pull out another win, 4 wins, and this is the team I'm most surprised by, that they keep winning, honestly. Here's a team that's 8-3, and they still points for versus points against, their -3 points. They've scored 289 and given up 292, and somehow they're 8-3. It's just amazing. Green Bay Packers are 7-3-1, and then the Detroit Lions are 7-4, and the Minnesota Vikings are 4-7. So you've got 3 teams here, all battling it out. All have been in first place in the last 3-4 weeks. And when one loses, the other 2 win. It just shifted around. It's just been a very tough division, and it's going to continue that way. Detroit Lions, who I thought, this is what makes this so crazy. I thought Detroit Lions were the best team. But boy, they're having a rough time. Winning games, I'm just surprised. It was a tough battle to beat the Giants, the 2-10 Giants. The Green Bay Packers, their offense, I just don't get it. The Chicago Bears, in some ways, despite not having a very good defense at all, they're giving up almost 300 points so far this season. Yet somehow they keep winning games. And I get, that success breeds more success. And right now, they're number 1 in this division in the NFC North. Now, looking at the NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wow, 3-game losing streak. But they're still in first place with a 6-5 record. Carolina Panthers are 6-6. So Tampa Bay has a half-game lead on them. And then the Atlanta Falcons, with a win, are 4-7, only 2 games back. Pretty interesting. And the New Orleans Saints drag up the bottom at 2-9. This is another battle of teams. Now, Tampa Bay has played 3 very difficult teams in a row, and they're not healthy. So hopefully for them, if you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they can ease up on the schedule, get some players back. It was Godwin's first game back after so many games missed. Didn't really put up much there. Only played 25 snaps. So he should improve their team on offense a little bit. And then we have to see how Mayfield is. His shoulder was really injured, and I don't know how badly, we'll have to see. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, 6-5, lead the NFC South. Now in the NFC West, the last division here, Los Angeles Rams, probably the best team right now. They are the best team in the NFC and maybe in the NFL altogether. They're 9-2, 6-game winning streak for them. Seattle Seahawks are 8-3. And the San Francisco 49ers are 8-4, and then the Arizona Cardinals are only 3-8. But this is super difficult division as well for any team to win. And the Rams are up by 1 game over Seattle and a game and a half over San Francisco. But with all 3 teams that close, it's like nobody can lose. You lose and you drop to the bottom of this ranking of the top 3 teams here, and also drop possibly out of the playoffs. So this is a very difficult division. The NFC West is going to be interesting to see who makes it. Right now, the Rams seem like the team to beat in the NFC. But we'll see what happens by the end of the year. I mean, still, like I said, 6 games to go for most teams. All right, let's look at the playoff picture in the AFC. New England Patriots are first place in the AFC with a 10-2 record. Denver Broncos are second with 9-2 record. Now, I'm not sure how that changes when the Broncos match them up, and both of them are at 10-2. I'm sure there's some parameters there that would, let's see. It really depends on some of the other games that are played, but right now the Denver Broncos are second. Indianapolis Colts are third at 8-3, and then the Baltimore Ravens, now that they are first in their division, even though they're only 6-5, they're in fourth in the AFC standings. So those are your four division winners. Now, wild card teams, or the Chargers, are 7-4. A flip here, because the Bills lost and the Jaguars won. Jaguars moved from 7th in the wild card rankings to 6th. So they're 6th, and the Buffalo Bills are 7th. And again, these are three teams, all 7-4. None of them can afford to lose a game, honestly, and still stay in the playoffs. So it's a very, closely matched thing, and it's going to be fun to watch. But now the New England Patriots, they really have a decent record. The opponents they are playing going into their last 5 games don't have a good record. I should put it that way. 3 of the teams they're playing have losing records. So it's a possibility, that they win those 3 games, they would be 13-2. And even if they lost the other games, they'd be 13-4. That would be a record that would be difficult for even maybe the Broncos could keep up with them, but Patriots are almost guaranteed to be in the playoffs. I mean, if they'd have to lose every game they play, and that's not happening. Now the Denver Broncos, again, they have a decent record. They play the Commanders and the Raiders next. Those 2 teams they should beat. They play then after that, their next 4 games are much more difficult. They got the Jaguars, they've got the Chiefs, and they've got the Chargers. That game against the Chiefs and the Chargers could be very interesting games going into that. The Colts, the Colts are 8-3. They're leading their division over the Jaguars by 1, but they play the Jaguars twice. They play the Texans twice, who are, right behind with 6-5 record. And they play the Seahawks and the 49ers. Their schedule is brutal. It goes Texans, Jaguars, Seahawks, 49ers, Jaguars, Texans. Wow. I don't know how they're going to hold on to this lead, honestly. That's if they run that or even win, go 4-2, I'd be very impressed with those teams. Seahawks are a tough team, and probably, in my opinion, they're probably the most difficult team. And then the 49ers are also a tough team, but that's a brutal schedule. Now for the Ravens, they have a little bit easier schedule here. They got the Bengals, the Steelers, the Bengals again. There's 2 wins they should get. Then the Patriots, the Packers, and Steelers. So actually, they only have 2 teams with losing records, and then they got all those division games between with the Steelers, and then they also throw in the Patriots and the Packers. So the Ravens have a difficult schedule as well for the most part. So those 4 teams, New England Patriots really have the best schedule of the top 4 teams. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see next week, because there's a lot of good rival games going on this weekend. All right, let's take a look at the NFC. Now in the NFC, the Chargers, the Rams, I don't know why I say that. And Rams in first, they're seed number 1, 9-2. Then the Eagles, with that loss, dropped them to second. They're 8-3, as are the Chicago Bears, are 8-3. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they are leading the NFC South at 6-5, even though it's only a 6-5 record, they are the 4th seed. And then you have Seattle Seahawks 8-3, the Green Bay Packers 7-3-1, and the San Francisco 49ers 8-4. So you see here, you've got the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers all in the same division, all making the playoffs right now. That is impressive division right there. Now, when you're looking at the schedule, while the Rams have a good chance at continuing to hold on to that number one spot, they play the Panthers, the Cardinals. Then they have a couple of tough games with the Lions and the Seahawks. Then they play the Falcons and the Cardinals again. So they should win 4 out of those 6 at a minimum. And if they do, they would be 13-4, and probably win out, as the number one seed. Now, for the Philadelphia Eagles, they also have a decent schedule themselves. They play the Bears. Now, that's a tough game. They're both 8-3. I say that but I still feel like the Bears are not really a good team, but somehow they win. So we'll see what happens. But the Eagles don't have a great offense, but I think they can put make it tough for the Bears and Caleb. But they have the Bears and the Chargers. Chargers are tough as well. Then they have the Raiders, the Commanders. Those two they should win. Then the Bills, though. That could be a very important game as well for both teams. And then the Commanders again on their final game. So maybe they go 3-3 in that, and they would end up 11-6. Still going to make the playoffs, but whether they win, they would win the division, I think, at 11-6. Now the Chicago Bears, they do not have an easy schedule. They're 8-3 right now, but they play the Eagles, then the Packers, then the Browns, then the Packers, the 49ers, and the Lions. Wow. I mean, they could lose 5 out of those 6 games right there, I feel like. And that would really flip their number there, and that would let either Green Bay or Detroit back into it. Now, for Tampa Bay, only 6-5, but their record is one of the easier schedules left. I mean, they play the Cardinals, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Panthers. Nobody too tough there. They got through their worst of the schedule, not very well, though. They lost their last 3 games, but they have a chance to really hang on to their division, despite the fact that, they do play the Panthers and the Falcons, 3 teams that in their own division that they need to beat. But they do have a good chance to hold on to their division. So we got some very interesting races coming up, and we'll see how they go as we move forward with this upcoming week. Some good games on Thanksgiving. There's even a game on Friday, and then, of course, Sunday and Monday. So we got a lot of games over from all the way from Thursday to Monday, every day but Saturday. So that should be fun. All right, that is a wrap for this episode. Appreciate you listening, and please check it out on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. All these charts that I talked about and all these players, you can see the top 10 list, everybody on the list and where they stand currently, as well as the playoff standings. You can see all those on the YouTube page at Just the Stats NFL. You can also find it if you're just doing audio on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, or whatever app you might use. Again, I appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe. That's very helpful. But for now, that is a wrap for this episode of NFL Top 10s for Wednesday. I'm out.